Welcome everyone to another observability clinic, feature flagging done right with OpenFeature and Dynatrace. I'm not an expert in feature flagging, but I have an expert with me. Adam, good morning, or actually good afternoon to you in Australia. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Andy. How you doing?
Good. Hey, thank you so much. OpenFeature, it's a project that Dynatrace with many others kicked off a couple of months ago to really standardize open feature flagging for developers. But I want to learn more. As I said, I'm not an expert. I want to just know what is OpenFeature, and especially why should Dynatrace users also look into OpenFeature? How does Dynatrace support OpenFeature when monitoring an application that is using OpenFeature for feature flagging? What are feature flags in general? So some of the questions that I have. But now I want to hand it over to you because I know you have a lot of great things prepared.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, so we're going to answer all of that today, to be honest. So here's the dashboard that we'll see in the live demo. So I'm going to go through, as you said, why does OpenFeature exist? Why did we decide to start this project along with eBay and donate it to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation? And then I'll kind of take a step back and say, like, what are feature flags? Because it might be that you're just starting new on the journey with feature flags. So differentiating between those two. So the what and the why of OpenFeature, a recap or an intro, depending on who you are, I suppose, on feature flags themselves, a bit of a live demo, and then kind of get into, who else is involved in this project. Because as I say, it's an open source project that we're contributing to. And then if you're interested, how you can get started adopting OpenFeature in your organization.
Awesome. That's a great plan.
So why OpenFeature? Why does it exist? Well, in my experience with customers, they need two things, right? So they start on their feature flag journey, and they usually start with a homegrown solution. They build something in-house, and at some point or other, they outgrow that homemade solution. They need to expand. They need support from a vendor, whatever the reason might be. That's the first sort of reason that OpenFeature exists. And the second is that observability of feature flag usage obviously is very important, because if you're using feature flags but you can't observe the effect of those in your environment, then you're kind of blind to that as well. And then the third is actually to build workflows around the enabling, disabling the usage of feature flags. So you can imagine, if you want to enable a feature flag, you might want to tell someone about it or prepare some infrastructure. There's a lot more than just toggling something on and off. So this is how a user would typically start. You have an application that you write in-house, let's say, and you build something, a backend. In this case, it could be as simple as a JSON file with some variables in there, and your application is just looking at that backend. It could be a database, very, very simple. And over time, that grows in complexity. And then at some point, as I say, you outgrow that and you want to migrate to a vendor solution. But the problem is you've actually tightly coupled your application to the feature flags themselves. So your application is now entirely dependent on your in-house solution. And that's the first part where OpenFeature can come in and actually help. Because what you do is you drop OpenFeature in the middle of the chain. So think of it like an API layer, or like a three-tier system where you're introducing something in the middle. What that means is that your application can call or request a flag generically, and then the bit in the middle does the magic translation, really. Now, it's important at this point to stress that OpenFeature isn't a product, it's a specification. So just like OpenTelemetry, vendors and other companies will write OpenFeature specifications and product around that, but OpenFeature itself is just an open standard. So what this really means is that with OpenFeature in the middle, you can then, when you come to swap out to a vendor, all you need to do is change that middle part, the bit in blue. So the provider itself, the back end obviously is out of your remit. That's provided by the vendor. The key bit though is that the application doesn't change. Nothing changes, so you don't need to rework anything. You don't need to rewrite anything.
Mm-hmm. So Adam, I really, if I can kind of wrap it up in my, or kind of explain it in my words, and I think you said it, what we try to do with OpenFeature, we try to provide a standard similar to what OpenTelemetry is doing, to define a standard on how we are collecting telemetry data, traces, logs, events, metrics. With OpenFeature, we are trying to define a standard on how application developers can build feature flaking capabilities into their application code without, and that's the big thing, without having a vendor-specific implementation, but basically a vendor-neutral implementation of how they're using feature flags, and then you can easily swap out to whatever provider you have. Maybe you have some home-built provider right now, you build an integration with OpenFeature, but you may go with one of the commercial vendors, and I think there's a lot of commercial vendors already that are part of that OpenFeature movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. The other thing that you get with OpenFeature is OpenTelemetry support out of the box. So it, and we'll see this in the demo, but it gives you observability out of the box. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Who else is sort of involved in this project, interested, who, which companies are writing providers and that kind of thing? You can see there's a fair number of them. And I've really got to call out and thank eBay. They were one of the primary drivers of this project, along with Dynatrace in the beginning. Yeah, they're using OpenFeature heavily. So thank you for eBay, and obviously you can see all of the other feature flag providers listed.
Cool, that's really great.
So we're in good company, Andy.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So taking a step back, I mean, if you're brand new to feature flags, let's just quickly cover what a feature flag is. Well, in essence, it's in its most basic form, it's a complicated if statement. So if you've ever written an if statement, you know, if this, then this, otherwise do this. Fundamentally, that's what a feature flag is. It's a way to take a microservice and really turn it into a nano service. So think if you were doing your, if you wanted to release two different colors of logo, you could do two deployments and deploy two versions of your application. But obviously that's two deployments and two sets of overhead and everything else. Whereas 99% of the code is the same. You're just changing the logo. So why do that? Why not use a feature flag? As I say, software teams can now make change without redeploying any of the code each time. And what it actually does is decouples a deployment from a release. So you don't have to have every feature being available on every deployment. You can kind of hide them and enable them safely when you want to.
I think that's actually a really powerful statement that you make here. It allows you to deploy changes into production, but still hiding some of the changes. We're not yet sure. Is it ready for prime time? Should we enable it for all of the users? You deploy it, you kind of hide it behind a feature flag, and then kind of, I think the term is progressive delivery. You start slowly introducing that feature to your end users, but really deciding in the app itself which user should start getting the new feature. And based on the telemetry data, I guess this is what we're getting to, you can then figure out, is this actually a good feature that we built? And based on that, you decide, roll it out further or bring it back to the team and kind of shut it off right now.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
It's one of the quickest ways to get started with sort of continuous progressive delivery, because if everything's behind a feature flag, you can decide that nothing is available until you decide. So you can just continuously deploy, and when you're comfortable and ready, you can start toggling those feature flags. And bringing OpenFeature into the mix, you get your telemetry data that gives you the evidence that, you know, enabling that feature didn't break anything. And that's what, you know, even we at Dynatrace use feature flags heavily. So if you've ever signed up for an early access program capability, That's why we ask your details, because then we can enable that feature flag just for you and no one else sees it. Similarly, we have some, internal capabilities that staff get that members of the public don't, and we run experiments. Does the change of this button, does the text help users to achieve their objective easier or faster? And if not, we can just quite easily roll that back. So these are, again, all of the ways that feature flags can be used. And I've got one story here, which is on that, the kill switch. So I worked with a customer who was monitoring their website with Dynatrace. They wanted to detect DDoS attacks or potential DDoS attacks. So obviously Dynatrace will notice the abnormal increase in traffic. And what they did is they put their homepage behind a feature flag. So when Dynatrace detected this problem, that problem got sent to their feature flag backend. It enabled the flag that serves the static content. And so it didn't, any increase in traffic, yes, you'd get the static content, but you wouldn't bring down the website. And then when they're happy, they can turn that off and back again.
That's awesome. It's a great list of, I like this use case a lot, especially from your own experience. But I like all of the others. That's a great overview, because in the beginning I always thought, feature flags is just really for, just as you said earlier, blue or green background color maybe, or just a new feature that I see. But circuit breaker, that's great. Or the calendar-driven launches is also great. So you deploy something, and then by a certain time, maybe when you do a press release or whatever it is, then at this point you just flip the switch, and then all of a sudden your code runs through a different code path. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and the opposite of that, I suppose, is deprecating features.
Oh yeah.
So you get to a certain point and you turn off a feature. So you can really start to manage your life cycle with this concept.
Yeah.
Cool. As you'd expect from a project that originated around Dynatrace and OpenTelemetry. It's fully compatible, as I've said, with OpenTelemetry. The SDK itself actually interacts and instruments with OpenTelemetry. So yes, fully compatible. You get full visibility in Dynatrace, all that good stuff.
Cool.
Demo time.
Yes.
Me talking.
Awesome.
All right. So here we are. Here is my OpenFeature dashboard. So the demo app that we've got here, let me just show you quickly. This fictional company, it exists to calculate Fibonacci at a given number of places. So here I'm calculating Fibonacci at 40. So obviously their key metric really as a business is, well, how long does it take my customers to calculate Fibonacci at a given number of spaces? So this chart and this table is the same information, just displayed differently depending on your preference. What they also do is they have feature flags for color. So we can change the color of the application. The default variant obviously is red. If I just switch that out to green, my application changes to green. Now, what you're actually seeing here, obviously in a real app, you wouldn't have a JSON payload on the right-hand side. This is the back end, if you think of it that way. So this would be behind the scenes. Obviously, it's a demo app, so we're just letting you play with that in the browser. The other cool thing is that if you have a look at the provider down here, you can switch out your backend providers. So right now I'm using this flag D, which is this JSON payload. But if I flip it to the environment, you'll see everything changes to black because that's the color that the environment variables say my app should be. So that's right there is changing my vendor, basically. That's what I've just done there.
And the nice thing is, come back to what you said in the beginning, OpenFeature is defining a standard for how a developer of that app would interact with the feature flagging tool. So basically, give me the color or whatever else it is. Give me the algorithm that I should use to calculate the Fibonacci sequence. So the developer doesn't need to change anything. They're just implementing it against the standard interface. But then you can swap out the actual provider that manages the current state of the feature flag. And whether it's something simple like flag D, where you can change it in a file, or whether it is, I think I saw in there, Launch Darkly, Harness, Split, Flagsmith, CloudBees. There's so many great products that are already providing a provider for OpenFeature. It's just awesome. Then you just swap it out depending on your needs.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as I say, all of this data, you know, the hex color for the back end, the various feature flags of the colors and whether which algorithm we're using, that is all injected at runtime by OpenFeature. So there's nothing necessarily that the developer has had to do to make that work. That logic is contained in the provider, in that middle sort of layer. And we'll get into who writes providers later on, but there's a lot of sort of free capability that you get that you wouldn't get if you were just interacting directly with a feature flag provider.
So that means so that I understand, you have the app running, I think somewhere on localhost. It might be a containerized app or whatever it is. And then in order to get this data, as you said, OpenFeature itself is instrumented with OpenTelemetry. That means if you can ingest OpenTelemetry data, you automatically get traces, I guess, right? You already, here we go, you're opening up the traces, perfect. So in our case, we're using Dynatrace as the ingester, which means we are getting to see end-to-end distributed traces, and I assume on those traces, we then see calls to the feature flagging framework. Here we go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
So yeah, as you've said, that's Dynatrace picking up the entry point, and then everything else, as you can see by the icon, is OpenTelemetry. And here all the request attributes. These have been kind of picked from the span attributes. Yeah.
And that means, what do I see up there? That's the Fibonacci number. So basically, you're getting additional context about every single time the feature flag is evaluated. Like the Fibonacci number, I guess, is one thing that's just app specific, but then feature flag key, feature, that's the provider, everything is there.
This call, obviously to calculate, has, there we go. That's actually easier to see. So it was looking for a Fibonacci algorithm. There is a remote Fibonacci service that I'll explain in a moment. That's off. The remote one is off, but the algorithm is recursive. So this demo app has a couple of different algorithms that can be used to calculate Fibonacci. Some are quicker, some are slower. And also there's a remote Fibonacci service.
But that's really cool. So that means on every single distributed trace, for every single user that is interacting with your app, we are capturing along that distributed trace all the information about which feature flag was turned on for this particular trace, for this particular user. And then you can take this data back. You know, obviously we can look at it on an individual trace level, but much better it is to get your overview with your dashboards, where you can see what are people using our feature. Is this feature flag changing the behavior? Is it changing the performance? Is there an error coming in for those users that have a certain feature flag turned on? And this is what you showed nicely in the dashboard. That's really powerful and all out of the box.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A couple of other things that this demo app does that actually relies on OpenFeature. A lot of backend providers allow you to pass a context or something about the user that can then change the value of the flag. In this case, what we're saying is, well, the default variant that we use to calculate Fibonacci is recursive, but if the user is logged in with an email that ends in FAS, they get a different algorithm.
That's cool.
That's something that OpenFeature gives, again, a standard sort of interface to do. So if I log in, user at fas.com, it was taking 4 seconds, and it's now a lot quicker.
So that's cool. So that's like you said earlier with Dynatrace, internally, we have some features that are turned on when we as Dynatrace employees log into our system. This could be a similar use case. You're logging in with a certain email. Maybe you are that vendor, like your employees, and then they get a different feature flag turned on. Or you can use this to turn on different features. If you're a SaaS business and you have customer A, B, C, they log in with the A domain, B or C email domain, and then they get different features turned on. And all of this is handled by the feature flagging, by OpenFeature, and then the feature flagging provider, and the developer doesn't need to care about it. The developer doesn't need to say in the code, if company A, then do this, if company B. They just say, is this feature turned on? And you just tell me if it's on, because the feature flagging tool knows the context, who is the user, and so on. This is really, really powerful. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And even if two feature flag vendors offered this idea of a context, obviously they do that differently. So if you were to move from an in-house to a vendor, you'd have to rewrite that entire logic, whereas OpenFeature makes that standard. So even the context, there's nothing to change.
Yeah.
You know, vendor X just knows how it works. So it's pretty powerful.
Pretty powerful, yeah. I'm really happy. I mean, I know I asked you to do this clinic with me because I want to learn a little bit more, and this is more than I expect. I mean, it's awesome. Like, it's perfect job. Anything else you have to tell us?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see how easy it is. Let's brew it. Let's see how easy it is to swap it out. So this would be your day zero. You can see the top line there. You're setting your in-house provider. You're getting a client, and then you're getting a string value, an integer, Boolean, a number, whatever the case may be. And then, you know, 6 months later, you decide to move to a vendor. Well, all you need to do is change that little piece of code.
That's awesome. Yeah. And again, for the developer experience, there's nothing you need to change. You can swap it out. Yeah. Cool.
So as I talked about with the logging in, logging out, the context is powerful. It allows you to provide user world, human stuff to the backends for flag evaluation, like emails or ID details, whatever you want, basically. Physical location, so you can give European users one thing, Australian users another. And then hooks. I didn't mention hooks yet. So enabling and disabling a flag is really just one part of what you want to do. You want to, again, the observability of that and what happens around it is really important. So OpenFeature hooks allow you to hook into the life cycle of a flag. So imagine when you enable a flag, you might want to notify somebody that is either about to happen or has happened to Slack or email or whatever the case may be. Logging, telemetry, updating systems of record, that's pretty important. Preparing systems for flag changes. So if there was, I'm going to enable this flag and I need to spin up some extra infrastructure just to get ready for that. All of these are use cases for hooks. So in terms of time, obviously the dotted line is where the flag evaluation actually occurs, but you can hook into before, during, after, and after has kind of two. After is when the evaluation itself was a success or when it failed. So you can decide based on what you need to do and when you need to do things. And then, like most languages, OpenFeature has a finally, which happens afterwards, regardless of success or failure. So you can build up quite complicated sort of workflows with this.
Yeah. And just for my clarification here, that means these are hooks that I can also specify in the app where OpenFeature is used. And so that means wherever in the code the developer put in, give me the value of this feature flag, it basically goes through the life cycle. And then I can hook in and say, hey, the developer is trying to evaluate this feature flag. And then in the success, this is the value that comes back. When failure, there's no feature flag defined. So this is a great way. I think that the examples are already perfect, what you said here, right? The modification.
Another one, because I know you love SLOs, Andy. It's, I'm toggling a feature flag on, and then I want to evaluate my SLOs after the fact.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. Awesome.
And there we go. So hopefully that's got you all excited and you want to, start using it. So how do you get involved with OpenFeature? Oh, that's still nicely animated.
Still
I'm not sure why that does that.
Well,
Try and fix that
it's a nice little gimmick here, yeah.
Yeah, so that QR code, all of the interested parties are listed on there. Basically, that is the easiest way if you're interested to kind of stay in the loop with the project. And also, as we say, it's open source, so we need your viewpoints. What works? What do you need? What do you like? What do you not? The interested parties list is a great place to start and add yourself. OpenFeature has its own website, so openfeature.dev. And then if you want to chat and get involved, then we are OpenFeature on the CNCF Slack channel.
That's pretty nice. Thank you so much, Adam. And I think what I completely forgot, I wanted in the beginning, I didn't give you a real proper chance to introduce yourself. I kind of swapped over because I wanted to learn about OpenFeature. I know it's a little late, but can you still tell people actually who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I obviously work for Dynatrace. I'm a developer and SRE relations, focusing on open source, focusing on OpenFeature and security and OpenTelemetry and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you joined my team, our team, really making sure that we are driving these great projects, driving them forward, and also enabling our customers, but especially in open source, right? It's not about our users anymore, about our Dynatrace customers. It's about the whole community. This is why while you showed Dynatrace, it was hugely educational around OpenFeature. And while, because OpenFeature is using OpenTelemetry, so folks, obviously we love it if you have Dynatrace as your observability provider, but in general, any observability provider should be able to then pick out this data from OpenTelemetry and give you similar analytics. In Dynatrace, it's nicely integrated, obviously with all of the other capabilities we have. But yeah, thank you so much, Adam. And I'm looking forward to more content from you. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.